So hello and welcome everybody. I hope everyone, wherever you are, is doing well. You're staying safe and ready to meet some of the incredible panelists that we have today and some of the people in our CTS community. Whether you're new to the CTS community or not, welcome. My name is Rafa Narciso. I'm the program coordinator for CTS Youth Society, and I will be your facilitator for the event tonight. Also joining us is Rachelle Mcbride, who is our digital communications coordinator for CTS. She makes us look pretty, which is awesome, and does so much stuff in the background to do some great work. And so she'll be providing some background tech support. So Rachelle, if you want to maybe unmute yourself, say hi so people know who you are. There's a lot of people on board.
Yep, I'm right here. You can send me a message if you've got any technical difficulties in the chat, and hopefully it will be a night that runs smoothly.
Sweet. All right, I'm going to get started with just a few. I have about 5 minutes of introductions and then we'll get on with the rest of the night. So for those of you who don't know, and maybe those who need a refresher, CTS is a nonprofit organization that aims to connect every youth in Metro Vancouver with their natural environment, their community, and with each other through life-changing and free outdoor experiences. So from our summer outdoor programs to year-round events, all of our programs aim to develop and educate youth with leadership, environmental awareness, and community engagement skills. Which brings me to why we're all here right now. This is our monthly Spotlight series. It's a monthly online learning session where we connect with our CTS community, also with like-minded organizations and individuals as a way to stay connected virtually in such a strange world. We've had partners like Wild Outside, we've had Pacific Stream Keepers and Still Creek Restoration Society and a whole bunch of others. They've all joined us for some fun, engaging programs where participants got to learn about some of the amazing work that's being done that they can get involved with. This month, we're changing the pace a little bit and we're flipping the model. Rather than sharing with you some of the incredible work that other organizations have done, we're bringing it back home and presenting some of our very own CTS alumni from throughout the years and opening up a dialogue on the impact that CTS has made on them and how their experience in the program is reflected in their work today. So welcome everyone to our CTS Alumni Night. If you're an alumni or if you're somebody who's been involved with CTS in the past, welcome back. It's great to see some familiar faces and some new ones and people that I never actually interacted with. If you're new to the program, it's great to meet you and welcome, and hopefully you'll have some time to get to know some new faces. Before we kind of go in with the rest of the night, I want to bring us all into awareness of the spaces, places, and land that we are calling in from today. So wherever you may be, if you can please take a moment to follow the link that Rachelle has just sent in the chat called nativeland.ca and find out whose land it is that you are residing in right now. I'm calling in from Vancouver, and so I respectfully acknowledge that I am in the traditional and unceded territories of the Squamish and Halkomelem speaking nations, in particular the Musqueam, the Stolo, Coquitlam, Tsleil-Waututh, Seminis, and Kakite nations. And so as I continue to work, play, and connect people to nature, any deep connection that I may have to the land or try to cultivate in others should and must take into account the past, present, and future of the nations that were the original stewards. At CTS, environmental stewardship is a major focus of our program, and no conversation about stewardship, conservation in Canada can be complete at all without acknowledging first the First Nations people that continue to live in and make use of that land. And so before we move into our dialogue, just some final tech reminders, and then we'll get going. In order to keep the flow of the night and avoid disruptions and background noises, we ask that if you can just please mute yourself while the panelists are going on. However, feel free to start your video and show your faces and have your cameras on. We'd love to see you. If you have any questions throughout, please feel free to send them in the chat directly and we'll address them when we have time. And if you want to talk, you can make use of the raise hand function, which I need to double check is available. Yep, raise hand function. If you click the reaction button on the bottom Zoom screen, there should be a raise hand function there. And we will give you space at an appropriate time to then unmute yourself and talk, because we would love to give other people the opportunity to talk questions. If you require any assistance, as Rachelle said, or encounter any technical difficulties, just message her or message myself, send a message in the chat, and we can try our best, very best to help you out. And so this brings us to the main part of the evening, which I keep on making the joke, but is honestly really just an opportunity for me to catch up with some of my old peers and some old friends. And so I'm really excited for it. We have with us today quite a range of people in different stages in their lives, but what ties them all together is a shared experience with CTS Youth Society, from whether it's from last year, whether it's from a few years ago, whether it's from a decade ago. This organization has had hundreds of people come in and out, generations of leaders, friends, and individuals that have added their mark to the program. And what we have here today is just a thin slice of the thriving community of CTS, people who have experienced the program in different capacities at different times and with different backstories. And so I'm going to ask our guest alumni to start by introducing yourselves. We'll go around the round table, give us a little bit about yourself and what you're up to these days. So I'm going to start. Who's first in my list? I think we have River first on my list. So River, if you want to get us started, and then you can pass it off to everybody around the circle.
Thanks for that beautiful introduction, Rafa. And good evening, everyone. It's so nice to see so many beautiful faces. I too live right on Musqueam homelands on Coast Salish territories. I currently work in a similar position to Rafa at a wonderful outdoor school called the Soaring Eagle Nature School, and I work as a program coordinator there. And I just graduated this past year as well from UBC in the Department of Geography. So a lot of ties to land and place here on Musqueam. And I will pass it to Cycle.
Thanks, River. Hi, I'm Cycle, or Travis, and I am a teacher, and I get to have my class outside. We're doing a mapping unit today, and a bald eagle flew over, and one student asked if we could follow the eagle. So we dropped what we're doing and ran after the eagle. And so, yeah, I'm really fortunate that where I get to teach, that the other species around us get to be teachers as well, and we can go with the flow that way. I'm living in Yarrow, which is by Chilliwack, which is traditional Stalo territory. I think that's good for now. Let's go to Liz.
Hi everyone, I'm Liz. I live in Vancouver on the territories of the Coast Salish people. I'm currently a full-time nursing student. I go to BCIT. I'm in the registered nursing program, working on my second degree. My previous degree was a Bachelor of Arts and Sciences that I was doing while I was at CTS. I'm a pretty big nerd. I love to write and do research and talk about health, public health, health with youth, mental health, anything health related. So nursing's been a good career choice for me. I'll be done at the end of 2022. I'm hoping COVID will be over by then, but we'll see. Yeah, and it's lovely to be here and to see some familiar names and faces, and I miss CTS a lot, so I'm really excited to chat more about it tonight.
It's been a long road since CTS. I'm now a second-year medicine student in Sealks territory, otherwise known as Kelowna. But I've studied psychology, did some construction stuff, and cooked for a bit. But here we are, and yeah, looking forward to this. I've been looking forward to it all day. Very excited.
I guess I'm the last panelist.
Sorry,
I think we have.
I was like, we're saving the best for last, and I missed it.
Oh, thanks, Peter. Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa. I wish I was sitting here today in my red shirt, but I actually don't have one anymore. But I spent many years in that red t-shirt, and it's, yeah, the organization is very near and dear to my heart. So it's great to be here tonight. I'm currently a student in occupational therapy at UBC. And because of that, I've been spending all my time inside on Zoom. And so I've just been trying to get out in nature as much as I can when I'm not on my computer, as most of us are spending probably more time on screens.
Sweet. And I think that's all of our panelists for the day. And so we're going to get on to the bulk. And I have a few questions for everybody, but we're going to start it off nice and easy. And my first question is really, CTS is a very inclusive environment. The whole point of CTS is that anybody at any point can kind of join in. And so what I want to know is what led you to first get involved with CTS, and maybe what was the nature of your role and time with CTS? I know a few of you, it's been quite a few years, so if you can maybe sift through the history books and see how long you were part of the CTS. But if anybody wants to get us started, yeah, what first led you to get involved with CTS, and how long were you there for?
The history when you want, just let me know. I can give
We'll do
you
that
in about 2 or 3 minutes. So
yeah. Brilliant.
I can go, Rafa.
Thanks, River.
Yeah. I was just thinking through, and I joined CTS when I was 12. So right when you can sign up. I think I knew about it in 6th grade and then signed up in 8th grade, and I was like so excited. I've been part of the Crazy Boggers in Pacific Spirit Park for a number of years before that, and so CTS is this beautiful way to continue that community and that stewardship. And I pretty much did CTS all the way from 8th to 12th grade, taking on various roles like peer leader. I was part of the youth council and was part of running kind of those amazing race things that were going on, and participating in a garden that was set up by, I believe, Lisa and some other folks on this call. So yeah, I have a really long-standing relationship with the Catching the Spirit community. And I'm going to pass it to my right, and that is Peter.
Yeah, I got involved with CTS for all of the wrong reasons. I legitimately, like, it was like grade 10 or 11, you need a certain number of volunteer hours to graduate. I had some of them, but so I saw them in the career planning office, and it was a pamphlet, and, you know, the typical for youth, by youth, and I was like, oh, this doesn't seem so bad. The only thing is, like, I hated camping. I did not like it at all. I went once in grade 8, and it was raining, and it was cold, and it was windy, and they put me next to the only heat source because, okay, it was windy, so we got moved inside, and the only heat source was this giant, like, prepubescent boy's shoes and clothes, and then my water bottle leaked overnight, and it was the worst. And I show up, sorry, I'm just going into a little story time right now, and I show up for my first day of training at Capilano River, and I get there, and there's this 6'4", 250-pound man wearing fairy wings dusting the trees. There's a group of kids playing, Ninja, and it was just from there that this glove grew. And I drifted apart after a few years because of life, but always kept in touch with Bob, and was delighted to, like, come back as a mentor advisor and see the other side of things and watch people grow and flourish, and just the way that I did. And so
that is a brilliant story. Thanks, Peter. Lisa, maybe do you want to go next?
Yes. I want to know, Peter, who was the person with the fairy wings on?
you can probably take a guess.
I don't know.
Would that be Bob or Blair?
That was Blair. That was Blair.
Blair, right, of course. Oh, it's so fun to hear the stories. I feel like I wish we were sitting around a circle and able to pass the talking stick around, but I guess we can pass the virtual talking stick this way. So for me, I got involved with Catching the Spirit as a peer leader, I think when I was in grade 9 or 10. And I have always had a love of the outdoors and being in nature. And I think what really drew me to CTS was the leadership component. I think I was very shy as a child, and I had a lot of, like, nervousness around being a leader, and even just, like, talking in front of people was challenging for me. So I think I really wanted to push myself to develop my leadership skills, and what better place to do it than in an outdoor program that already focused on something that I really loved. So it seems like a really nice gateway for me to develop some leadership skills.
Thanks. And yeah, it's always been a big part of CTS, and kind of we always call it a leadership program disguised as a camping program, right? So it's always great to hear that. Liz, you're next on my list. You want to pass and go on?
I got involved in CTS, I think I was in grade 7 as a participant. One of my friends from school really wanted to do her Duke of Ed camp. And I was like, I like camping. And she was like, well, do you want to come? And she didn't want to go by herself. And she did one weekend and was done with the program. And I was completely hooked. We had so much fun at Pacific Spirit. And I think after that, River and I met in high school. I think River convinced me to be a peer leader. And I did one more year as a participant, and then did a year as a peer leader. I really liked being able to come to camp on the weekend because I was a competitive athlete in high school. So I could do that during the week and then come to camp on the weekend. And I decided to be a Mento when I was in university. I was actually, I think when I first graduated or first finished my first year of university, I was 18, and I emailed Bob and I begged to be a mentor advisor. I was like, this is what I really want to do. Like, I know I'm not old enough yet. Can you please make an exception? And unfortunately, it couldn't happen that year. But the next year I joined. So if there's any peer leaders or previous participants in the audience who always asked how old I was, you kind of know now. And so I was a mentor advisor for 2 years in a row, and it was awesome. My co-mentor advisors, some of them become really close friends, and maintain that contact today. So really thankful for being involved in CTS.
Well, unfortunately, I never got a chance to be a camper or peer leader in Catching the Spirit, but I was a mentor advisor in 3 different parks, Pacific Spirit, Burnaby Lake, and Capilano, and I wish I had a chance to be at Tynehead. And I also spent a few years on the board as well. And how I got involved was I just finished my teaching program and getting my certificate. And I knew I wanted to teach outside, and I was teaching at Stanley Park Ecology Society, or maybe I was about to. And my partner at the time, her sister was getting married in Ontario, and I didn't want to fly because of the fossil fuels. So I thought that taking the train would be less fossil fuels. But that meant a lot of time off work. And so I don't quite remember why maybe I was worried like that I wouldn't get to work at Stanley Park anymore or what, but I thought, oh, I wonder if there's other similar programs out there. So I looked up Pacific Spirit Park and came across Catching the Spirit, and then met up with Nat, and yeah, she was so enthusiastic and really into having the program be like what I want it to be, and then what the peer leaders want it to be, and the participants. That yeah, I just loved how it's so kind of co-creative and customized to whatever people want who are there. So yeah, I love that empowering nature of Catching the Spirit.
Okay, you guys, you're all giving me goosebumps. Thank you.
No worries, Ed, and it's great to see the whole history of CTS, and thanks for everybody for sharing your stories, and like it's great to see the different backstories that lead you to CTS, to really show off. Like it's accessible to anybody. If anybody was like me, I had never even spent time out much before I went to CTS, and so that's the whole point, and now I'm kind of in love with it. We're gonna move on to, this is kind of another introduction one, but I think CTS, one thing that people really get drawn to is the community and the people and the experiences that you have. And so whether it's the head dunking at Capilano, which was always my favorite, a big favorite of mine, or some of the stories that I know back in the day, there used to be canoeing at Burnaby Lake, and every camp had their own individual little bits and pieces. And so I'm wondering if y'all would be able to maybe perhaps just share a short story that kind of best captures your time spent at CTS and shows off what you valued at CTS. And so if anybody wants to start, you can get going. Just a quick story to best capture the time spent. We've got a lot of inquisitive faces.
It's so hard to think of just one to share. I think like one of the things that really stands out for me when I think about my time at CTS was the stewardship projects we participated in. I think that was kind of like, I mean, every weekend there was a stewardship project and it was always a highlight for me. And one that really stands out for me was doing a like a plastic water bottle awareness event at Capilano River. And I remember me and my team of other peer leaders and all our participants kind of like running around the Capilano Dam, where there was a bunch of people out in public having picnics. And we were just kind of like spreading the word about, I think we called it like getting off the bottle or drop the bottle or something. We had some catchy name, but it was one of the only times I think that at a CTS program, we really like engaged with the public a lot and kind of started some dialogues around alternatives to drinking plastic water bottles. So it was really fun. And I feel like we probably made a big impact that day. And that's how I felt about all of our stewardship projects, but that one really stood out for me. I guess I will pass the talking stick over to Peter.
Yeah, what was it called again? The no plastic bottle pledge. Yeah, like Lisa said, it's so hard to think of just one story that kind of encapsulates everything. Because you think about people like Nat and Bob and the stories that they bring. You think of stories that your fellow mentorvisors had and that your participants brought to you as well. But one that always sticks out to me is that when I was a mentorvisor, we were camping at Pacific Spirit, and he was a little bit more shy, kind of on the quiet side. So the bulk of Friday evening and Saturday was trying to get that person involved, and didn't seem that engaged, didn't that seem that active. And this was where me and Santiago actually made a big mistake. This was a peanut-free time, right? And one of the granolas actually had peanuts in it, and we missed it. We totally screwed up, and he was allergic to peanuts, and he had some of them and had an anaphylactic reaction. And we rushed, got his parents there. Luckily, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad of a reaction. You just need to go home, get some Benadryl. And an hour later, sun is about to go down, and who do you see walking back in? The same individual. I'm not going to say his name just for privacy. And it's one of those things where sometimes at CTS, we don't realize the effect that we have on the participants, and it's not quantifiable. But I got to chat with him later that evening. He just said he just wanted to be back. Even though he was quiet, he was fully engaged. And we both laughed off the mistake of the peanuts, even though it could have been a lot worse. And I'm not even sure if I should be talking about it right now, but it just goes to show you that the effect that we have in even such a short amount of time can be so profound that people really want to be back and continue to spend time with us.
Okay, I have to throw one in.
All right.
I got a good one for you.
Go ahead.
Early days of the program, I went down recruiting in the downtown east side and brought up about a half a dozen First Nations kids who were living on the fringe down there. And I had to buy running shoes for them and a few other things. And I used to go around every Sunday morning and debrief. And did that for the first 3-4 years. And that's where the program started to really develop and get some meat, is what do you like, what don't you like? So I came up that morning with 24 cinnamon buns for fun, and then sat down with everybody and said, hey, what do you think, blah, blah, blah. And we did that. And then I started to leave as everybody, the kids all started to leave. Pardon me, the young people started to leave before me. I'm not supposed to use the word kids. Anyway, they started to leave, and then I was following two of them, and then I stopped to use the Biffy and then followed them a bit further. I step out of the park and they're standing at the bus stop swearing at each other. Unbelievable. And they looked at me and they go, "We wouldn't swear in the park." There you go. I often wonder what happened to those kids, you know, that some of the things like that. I've got quite a few stories from quite a few of the kids. It's a lot of fun. Anyway, go ahead. I could talk forever.
Appreciate it, Ed, and I'm sure you do, and I'm sure the program's changed quite a bit since you were a part of it. So it's nice to see the evolution.
The idea behind the program is, and that's what the whole thing. The original motto was respect yourself, others, and Mother Earth, and the reason it was is when we started it, the young people had trouble being listened to. They go to meetings and it's just the kids get up, you know, they wouldn't listen to what they're saying. And I always used to go, they're the ones with young brains and thinking. We're getting old. Listen to them, you know. So it was a really interesting experience. When I first put it forward, the Park Society here, I put the Park Society together first. And it took me almost 3 years to get the program. They wouldn't give me permission to have it in the park. And they were afraid you guys were going to break something. There you go. There's a bit for you.
Brilliant. And now that we're in the park, I think it's Metro Van would be hard pressed to remove us. So it's great that we're still here. I'll pass it back to as we move forward. Maybe Cycle. Do you want to maybe get us going, Adrian?
Yeah. Let's see. Okay. So I think one of my favorites was it was for a wide game in the evening, and I think it was pretty sure it was Hunger Games, and I think Noah Sturton here he was either co-creator of it or the most enthusiastic person at camp about it. I definitely think of Noah when I think of Hunger Games, and I was dressed up as something scary. I think there was an octopus on my face. It's probably meant to be something else though. And I jumped out of a tree with some sort of poisonous spray bottle and scared the heck out of a group of campers. So yeah, I think that describes me at Catching the Spirit. Hey Noah, good to see you guys. It's been a long time.
So hard to pick. Like over the last couple of days leading up to this event tonight, I was thinking about all these like very vivid CTS memories that I have, and I even remember my very first camp as a participant. And I guess kind of along the similar theme to Peter's story, I had a participant show up to Burnaby Lake, and they were on the younger side in terms of the age requirement for the program at the time. And they showed up and they were really grumpy on Friday. They were like, I don't want to be here. I'm hungry. Like, I want to go home. They had just come from a different camp during the week, and they were really skeptical about CTS. They'd never tried the program before, and they didn't know anybody. And so I said, here's your t-shirt. Here's your granola bar. Go put your backpack down, and we're going to play a game. And grumbled a little bit, but then slowly as the weekend evolved, this particular participant had so much fun and came back, I think, almost every other weekend that summer and the summer after, like as much as they possibly could whenever there was space, and became a really great member of the CTS community. And yeah, it's really great to see how attitudes change and friends are made and memories are made. And yeah, we had a really great time. I'll pass it to River.
Thank you so much. I'm getting shivers. Oh my God, such beautiful stories. I had a couple memories, but I'll share one about food, because I feel like for me and my brother, who's actually on the call as well, food is a huge part of our family upbringing. And I think for me, the first time cooking for a ton of people, or even just cooking for myself, was at Catching the Spirit. And I know Cycle shared a story earlier about pancakes with us, and I definitely vividly remember this one morning being in charge of flipping pancakes. And I feel like it was a really big responsibility at 12 for some reason, at least for me. And I just remember standing beside the pancake. The person had to put the pancake batter on. I was just standing there having to flip them. And it was like this intense concentration of like, okay, I got this. And like, this happened for a while because, you know, we have a few participants. But that theme of food really was centered throughout my 5 years or plus at CTS, and throughout kind of these Iron Chef competitions that we would have, or anytime at the end of the summer when there'd be so much food, just like figuring out what to do with that as a peer leader, and eating these like very weird concoctions of food. So yeah, similar. I've never had an experience like Peter's with the peanuts, but similarly, food has been a really big thread at CTS.
Brilliant. Thank you everybody for sharing the stories. And like I mentioned, for anybody else listening, we're going to have some time at the end to share some stories. And so if you have some stuff that you want to share, please hold off and then we'll talk about them at the end. I have one that I really do want to share, which kind of reflects my time at CTS and goes with a lot of what everybody else was saying of, you know, we're a leadership organization and we're a service organization, we're an outdoor organization. We have a lot of different arms, and sometimes it's the little moments that really stick to us. And for some reason, one of the things that really strike me is doing the dishes. Doing the dishes at Camp Capilano was always super fun because it was always a tradition to sing. There's like maybe 4 or 5 songs, but my absolute favorites was singing the Pokemon theme song constantly while doing the dishes. And there was a special way that CTS made doing work fun and engaging and made you realize that it had very little to do with the work that you needed to do, and more just with the people and the atmosphere that you're surrounded with. So even something as mundane and as kind of, I think any kid in 12 or 13 would hate doing the dishes, but when you're doing it and you're enjoying the people that you're surrounded with and you're singing the Pokemon theme song at the top of your lungs, anything can be enjoyable. And so it's always things like that.
How does that go again, Rafa?
Ooh, are you gonna ask me to sing in front of I'm gonna pass it off back to you guys. I believe it starts with do you want to be your very best that no one ever was? To catch them is my real it was a great song and it's definitely now repeating in my head. And so the next question that I have is kind of connecting your lives now at CTS. And so for some of you, it's been quite a few years down the road. Like for me in particular, before coming back to CTS, it was 6 years before I actually came back. And so sometimes you have to go back and look back at the things that impacted your life and realize how much they impacted you. And so my next question is, how do you see CTS and the work that you did at CTS reflected in the work that you do now and the life that you live today? And whether it's in the, you know, the career that you've chosen or whether it's just in the small things, what are some ways that you see CTS reflected in your work today? And maybe I'll share my side of things is it really did grow for a love of nature. I think prior to CTS, I didn't really spend a lot of time outdoors. I think I've heard my mom say many times that you can do any vacation. If I can do any vacation, she would do it, but she would never go camping. And so our family was never a camping family. But then CTS made me have an experience in Camp Capilano, and which has grown into something that has really been a passion and something that's been really consistent in my life. And so that passion was started from CTS. And so that's where I come back to the work that I do. And so, yeah, maybe I'll pass it off. I'm going to get started and pass it off to Liz. If you can just, how does CTS reflect in your work and the work you do and the life you live today?
So I guess with my education so far, I've done a lot of work with community theory and community development. And when I think of CTS being for youth, by youth, that the CTS programming is created by peer leaders. for people who are in the same age group and who can relate in a really meaningful way to each other. That really reflects what I study in public health and community development, being that people in the community make change for their own community, and they're empowered and they take ownership over the issues that they're facing. And I just found that was a really neat parallel, especially when like problem solving at camp and youth also holding each other accountable and working as a team was really important. I think even thinking back to menu planning as a peer leader, learning how to use a Google Doc to collaborate that way and to work as a team and run on a schedule, and kind of tag team and bounce ideas, and all that really has folded into the work that I've done today. Another thing about being a mentor advisor, it was really important to be able to schedule your life so that you focus on your own wellness while promoting other people's wellness. It's a really busy and demanding job, and so that was important, and like really relying on your team for support and knowing that there are people there to help you out was really cool. And yeah, just lots of teamwork, lots of like group project work. I've done a lot of presentations and public speaking since being at CTS, and describing a game to a group of youth and getting a big group's attention was definitely a skill that I've brought forward into my other work. So yeah, CTS has overall been amazing preparation for what I'm doing right now and what I'll continue to do in the future. I'm going to pass it to Lisa.
Thanks, Liz. Just hearing Rafa's story about doing the dishes reminded me of something that has really stuck with me from CTS as well, and also related to dishes. I remember once doing dishes, and Cycle actually, he posed a question to, I think we were a group of peer leaders, and he said like, oh, do you think it's more effective to use your hand to wash the plate or use the pressure from the tap to wash the plate in terms of like water conservation? And that's something that Cycle has really challenged me to do throughout my life, is just to like really think critically about what we're doing and how we can think about different ways to minimize waste and to kind of lessen our impact on the planet. So that was just a side story from camp, and yeah, I think Cycle has really really challenged my thinking around like how we can live sustainably, which is something that I definitely try to maintain throughout my life now, and certainly not perfect, but I think little things that we can do can make a big difference. And then another kind of a side note, so when I used to see the acronym CTS, I would always be reminded of Catching the Spirit and all these amazing memories I have. And now that my focus has shifted a bit towards being a student of occupational therapy, now when I see the acronym CTS, I think of carpal tunnel syndrome. But in the back of my head, I'm still always reminded of some of the incredible moments I have from Catching the Spirit. So I think that, I always have these little reminders of great times that were had at camp and as a peer leader and mentor advisor.
Thanks, Lisa. Hopefully you're the only person who thinks about carpal tunnel syndrome at UCCTS, but I didn't even realize that was an acronym. Maybe can I pass it back to Peter? Maybe talk about some of your how it reflects on your work today.
It's funny you bring up carpal tunnel because I had to do it last week and it's going to be on the final. So now I know what mnemonic I'm going to use. These are all stories that it's really played a factor in, like Liz was talking about, our ability to work with teams and so many moving components. And we were young when we were figuring those things out. Like as 16-year-olds, like planning a weekend for an entire group of teenagers, like we had to learn those things quickly and learn quickly on our feet. It's also played a role in like my environmental advocacy now that Rafa talks about. I've been very lucky to work with doctors on Canada's first parks prescription program, prescribing nature to people as for a health remedy and getting that off the ground. But the longer I'm in medicine, the more I find out the ways that it's awful, the ways that people don't feel like they're being listened to and that they're not being thought of as equal partners in this relationship. And that's one thing that always comes back to me is CTS and the value of listening that it taught me and to create these longitudinal relationships. When I got involved with CTS in high school as a peer leader, many of you may know, but Natalie was the program coordinator at the time, and she has had a profound impact on my life. I went from getting involved for the first time just for the summer camps to being involved with the youth council stuff, with the Amazing Race stuff, with the Manning Park winter trips. And I owe a lot of that to her. And it's because, truth be told, I was a pretty insecure kid. I was insecure about talking in front of groups. I was insecure about my original ideas. I was insecure about how I interacted with people or even where I came from. And she made me feel comfortable. And she kept this relationship going with me about always checking in on me, seeing how I was doing, and definitely things that weren't on her job title. And making sure that even 2 years later, when I had to apply for a job and I needed a reference letter and asked her for one, and she sent me back. Most people just say, write something up for me, I'll just sign my name on it, it's fine. She wrote me this 2-page letter and I remember crying. It was just like, she remembered these small details about my life and how she was always there for me, and she was able to bring up those qualities and remind me about how great I actually am and how great all of us are as peer leaders. So she really taught me the value of long-term relationships, and I hope I was able to bring that to CTS and something I still use in my everyday life.
Yeah, I agree. Nat has that superpower to make you feel so special, and yeah, really see the superpowers in everyone, and share that with them. Yeah, what I was thinking for this question was similar to what Rafa was saying about doing dishes, to just kind of like find ways to bring more fun play into my life. And so, yeah, like even today teaching, I dressed up as Dr. Wolleben, the famous German scientist for the trees, yeah. And I had the wig and the lab coat and the clipboard, and I like flew here from Germany. I was very tired. And yeah, there's just like lots of ways that you can bring fun into your life. And I think yeah, inspired by the youth that are in the culture at CTS, in that I think before then I kind of had this idea of teenagers that were like, like, oh, this sucks, let's like play video games, kind of like apathetic, which is like a stereotype, but not wasn't right. And so just to see like teenagers playing and having fun was just like warmed my heart. And yeah, like you can do that at any age. And I'm almost 40 and I'm having fun all the time and being silly. And so I think it's important to yeah, not to take ourselves too seriously and to have some fun and bring that play into washing dishes, and to sing the Pokemon song at least once a day, and yeah, lots of ways. But yeah, thanks. River, have you gone through this question yet?
I have not. Thank you, Psycho.
Yeah.
I was flying in and out of the Zoom.
I noticed.
Very rapidly.
Yeah, your arms must be so tired.
It's a good time. Not even my rainy season. Yeah, this is a good and hard question. How does the mentorship at CTS kind of continue into life today? And I really feel like it's in every aspect of my life. From seeing everyone on this call, including Annalisa and Noah, who I met at CTS as well, having this really big community across what's now called Metro Vancouver, and knowing that, you know, I went to UBC, so seeing folks that were from programs there, and seeing people in my work now that have been part of Catching the Spirit as well. Some of my best friends and someone I call my sister today are still part of my community and my life on the everyday. And I think for me, that thread of food and community has been so huge. And also just that role, that model of for youth by youth, and the mentorship that goes on behind the scenes. Cycle was my mentor for a number of years, and I still do solo sits that we did at Catching the Spirit. And I work in a nature-based school today that does many of the same things, and throughout university continue to also work in kind of outdoor nature-based education. So for me, that's just been CTS has continued on to every aspect of my life, and it will moving forward as well. So there's just so many different aspects that are still here.
Sorry, some technical difficulties. Hello. Thank you everybody. And as River kind of alluded to, a major part about CTS is that mentorship. I think for me especially, that was one thing that I valued a lot, was a mentorship where you're not being given directions. You're not being given, oh, this is what you need to do. You're being given questions, and questions to ask yourself. And then you're required to come up with the answer. Peter had mentioned, like, you know, like it wasn't easy sometimes. Some of the stuff that CTS puts you through isn't easy. Yeah. But being in that space where you're allowed to kind of challenge yourself and be able to push yourself and be in a supportive environment. And so my next question is in line with that, in terms of mentorship and being a mentor as well as receiving mentorship. Quite a few of you went through the program as both a participant, as a peer leader, and as a mentor advisor. And in all three of those, you're going to have a different experience. You're going to be a mentor, you're going to receive mentorship, mostly, almost always at the same time. And so was there anything in being a mentor to others, or receiving a mentor and receiving mentorship from your mentors, that you learned through being part of CTS and that you've taken with you, is my next question. And I want to push it off to Cycle first, but I'll give you some time to think about before you need to answer, because maybe to give an anecdote, just like River, Cycle was one of my mentors as well, and has really shaped just the way that I question things, and being able to have somebody that was able to really give me the right ways of questioning myself, because there are good ways and there are bad ways. And so that's something that I've taken with me, that Cycle has actually passed on to me, and kind of approaching things with questions rather than answers was always a big thing that he pushed forward. So I appreciate that. But I'm going to pass it on to you now, Cycle. Was there anything in being a mentor or receiving mentorship that you learned through being part of CTS and that you've taken with you?
Well, thanks, Rafa, and thanks for your thoughtful words. It's pretty neat to. I mean, I wasn't a teacher in this case, but it's, you know, not too different, I guess. And, you know, a lot of teachers, for example, or mentors don't always get a chance to, hear back from their students or mentees, peer leaders from the past. So it's really neat to be here this evening. Thanks for saying that. And I think for me, it was the importance of listening, because I don't necessarily know what's best for the peer leader or the person I'm mentoring, and but just for them to know that, like, I've got their back and I'm here to support them, I think is I know when I've received that, it's empowering. And, you know, like, we do have the power to make our own decisions and make good decisions for ourselves. But, you know, having that support is, it can be helpful when times are tough. And yeah, at CTS, there's a lot of challenging things to do. Like we're inviting peer leaders, youth to really step up and take adult roles in the program. And yeah, and so like seeing them rise to the occasion and like blow me away at the creativity and the spontaneity and decision making has been yeah, it just reinforces that in my mind that that the trust in others that they can do it. And so yeah, I think that's something that I learned and experienced in CTS. Thanks. I'll pass it to Lisa.
Thanks, Cycle. So yeah, I think Cycle touched on the idea of teamwork, and I think for the summer that I was a mentor advisor, I was able to be in that role after having been a peer leader. So I felt like I brought a perspective that I understood what it was like to be a peer leader, and was able to draw on some of the experiences I had from amazing mentor advisors that supported me when I was in the peer leader role. And I think one of the really cool things about Catching the Spirit is that you have such a built-in support system with the other peer leaders that you're working with to facilitate camps. So sometimes it's not even a matter of needing to support the individual, but allowing them to recognize that they're supported by their peers and using their peers as a resource to help them through problem solving or whatever it may be. So I think for me, I was really just struck by the power of collaboration and teamwork and what can be accomplished when people work together in a really safe and hopefully non-judgmental space. So yeah, just harnessing the power of each other, I think was something that really stood out for me.
Thanks, Lisa. I think to kind of build on what's been said so far, I would echo a lot of both of your sentiments about mentorship in the program. And I think the most important thing I learned from being mentored and being a mentor in the program is that mentorship is a two-way street. It's not a top-down approach where in this case, the mentor advisor educates or just mentors the peer leader and tells them what they should do. It goes both ways. And when I transitioned from being a peer leader to being a mentor advisor, I had a really hard time taking a step back and not being in every situation and being like, oh, it's 3 o'clock, we got to get to the next activity type of thing, like I would be if I were a peer leader. And Bob often used the term challenging each other. Like he would challenge us, we would challenge him, peer leaders would challenge us, we would challenge them. Like it was a lot of back and forth. And I think that that experience really helped me as a mentor, the maturity in youth and providing autonomy and validation in both directions was a super cool experience, because I often felt like as a teenager that I was more mature than people perceived me as. And so to be able to go on to being a mentor advisor and validating that experience with the youth who are very mature, they're very intelligent, they want to work really hard, was a really neat experience. And all of those end of the night debriefs and end of camp debriefs, I have lots of memories from. And there was one we were definitely up too late, and it was back and forth, like mentor advisors saying, how about this? And peer leaders saying, well, we should have done this. And lots of really neat thinking and collaboration there. And it's really cool to see that across ages and across experiences. So yeah, that's been really neat. I will pass it to Peter.
Yeah, I also can't help but echo what's already been said about this meshwork of community. And you were a peer leader, but you were also a peer, but you were also a leader. And while that's more difficult in ways that also made it better because you could lean on different parts of that role for support. For me as a peer leader, I've already said it, like for me, the mentorship that Natalie provided is something that I still hold very close to me now. But even other like interactions that are, it's hard to put value on. I mean, Blair made me question my views of masculinity, and I had other mentorvisors that I worked with when I was a mentorvisor also do the same thing. It was just, but as a mentorvisor, being on the other side of it, it was also very interesting, and seeing how much peer leaders also looked up to you and like holding that with a lot of sanctity. But peer leaders also made our job so easy. And I don't know if you remember this, Liz, but it was the first, what is it called? The training weekend. What is that called again? At Caplano?
Boot camp.
At boot camp. And we're firing on all cylinders, going well, everything. And everybody remembers the warm pool, right? Everybody's a big fan of that. Everybody wants to be in there. And you're a supervisor, you're freaking out. You're like, oh, how are people going to get out on time? We got future activities to plan. The next activity was at 5:45. All the peer leaders got out at 5:30 because they wanted to have enough time to change and get ready for the next activity without even us saying it. So we're surrounded by such an amazing community from top to bottom.
Yeah, I feel like you folks said a lot of it. So I want to kind of speak in a final piece of, I feel like we just spoke of these defined roles of peer leader and mentor advisor, and that as a program supervisor, mentor of everyone, and Bob and other folks. And I think also, as Peter alluded to, there's this mentorship that and care that goes on all the pieces, and even just amongst the participants. And I think that having never been a mentor advisor myself, at a CTS capacity, feeling that, you know, when I went winter camping with one of my good friends, and Peter, you were there, and you were an older kind of figure at that time, and like really supporting like the fear of these two young people being like, it's cold and we're eating like cheese or something in the middle of the night, and you're like, well, I'm doing it, it's cool. Like okay, cool, I guess he's doing it, I guess we're gonna do it. So just like all those different layers that flow outside of the container of what we're even describing. And I want to give a shout out to Chantel Chen, who was a huge mentor of mine throughout programming, but also just for the few years afterwards, and just like supporting my transition to UBC, supporting my transition to a geography degree, really just there for every step, and really writing those reference letters that were powerful, and supporting mentorship in that way. And so, like I mentioned, since my work has continued alongside the CTS community in different nature-based capacities, I think that mentorship is just so much more than we can even like define and describe here. I just wanted to share that.
If I can add to that story, I had no idea what I was doing. I was looked at as an older figure. I had no clue what was going on. But that's the beauty of CTS. You got to learn things along the way. B, it wasn't cheese, it was butter, because we were trying to burn as many calories as we could at night. So butter and chocolate sounds weird, but in the middle of the bush at -5 degrees, tastes pretty great.
I have two more questions. I'm going to add a surprise question for the panelists today, just because of the theme that we're kind of moving towards. So I hope it's not too much. It's kind of funny that I'm doing it surprise now. Peter's ducking out. He's no longer out. I apologize for the push. But we have been talking a lot about challenges, the experiences that were difficult and challenging. And I think especially now, it's kind of hard to think about that because we're in a space where it feels so monumental sometimes, these challenges, but coming out of challenges to the other side of it is, for me at least, one of the most incredible experiences. And I know going through the CTS program, there have been times where I'm, like in the middle of camp and I've got 30 kids and we don't know what we're doing and we're all doing random stuff, and you kind of just got to push through. And so as part of your experience in CTS, I'm wondering if you can speak to any of the particular experiences that were difficult and challenging, but also important. What were some of what was challenging about those experiences, and again, like what we mentioned, yes, what did you learn from it? What did you pull away from it from? Because yeah, I think it seems to be a recurring theme that going through some of the program stuff, it's not often not often easy. And I think for me in particular, I always go by the motto of, the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. And so, yeah, so what were some particular experiences that you had that were difficult or challenging, but also important? If you don't mind, Lisa, I think I haven't pushed it on to you yet, so I'm going to push you first.
Sure. So kind of the first thing that came to mind was, as a peer leader, I was a peer leader at Keflana River. So we would sit around we had the luxury of having a cabin, and we would sit to do our nightly peer leader debrief in this big room that had like a fireplace. And sometimes we would spend a long time in there debriefing as peer leaders and talking about, what's going really well so far and what are some things we might want to consider revising in our schedule or in the way that we're delivering our program. And I remember one thing that we always were always kind of stumped us is, how do we get like people who are feeling like they're not as into it as the other campers? Like, how do we really engage them and make sure that they get the best experience they can out of it? And I think it's something that there's no right and wrong answer for. So we would, we all bring in different approaches and perspectives. And I think in the end, as long as we really tried to make sure that the person was included and they were able to, be listened to and share how they were feeling and all those sorts of things, it always seemed to work out in the end. But I do remember really brainstorming, what can we do to make this person contribute more, participate more? And in the end, I guess it really wasn't anything that we could necessarily do for them, but more just how the weekend was able to unfold and how we were able to use our interpersonal skills to help that person feel supported and safe and included. So yeah, that's my bit. And I would like to pass it on to River.
Thanks for sharing that, Lisa. Yeah, I was trying to think of specific challenges because it blurs together. It feels like everything was just fun. But I think maybe I'll take this question a different way and talk about a personal challenge I had or I have as a peer leader. And I think for me it was I'm very I love people. I'm very outgoing. I love to bring energy into a room. And I think a challenge for me as a young peer leader, I think I started in ninth grade or something, was really learning that step back role and really fleshing out what are the different parts of all of me that I can bring to the table to share and be a supportive team member. And I think there's always a challenge in working with 4 or 5 other people as a team. And so that was just something that I worked on throughout those years, and I'm still working on, but is yeah, I guess it was more of a personal challenge that I journeyed through CTS with.
I wouldn't say I have a distinct answer. I'm still kind of formulating it, but I think in general, learning to work with people who have different personality types and different leadership styles is really interesting, and different levels of energy. Working at being a peer leader with River, for example, or a mentor as with Peter, lots of energy on both parts of the team. And sometimes when I'd work with a mentor or a peer leader who was a bit more introverted or more shy, it was interesting trying to work with the different personality type there, and that maybe different comfort zones with certain activities or expectations of the group. And I learned eventually that having a diverse set of personalities and comfort zones on a team is super valuable, because it creates this kind of really nice synergy and balance, rather than being like over the top all the time or super chill all the time. It was really nice to bounce back and forth. And yeah, I think it was challenging sometimes as a mentor advisor when peer leaders had disagreed with the mentor advisors, and the mentor advisors disagreed with the peer leaders, and I kind of connected to my last response, like going back and forth and not having this top-down approach to leadership. And the program leadership at CTS is a collaboration with everybody, so that was really valuable. And yeah, definitely lots of challenges in and out.
In terms of tangible challenges, it would be being a mentor advisor at Pacific Spirit with Santiago, because we were the only camp that didn't have a car. And I loved it when Liz was working with me, because then she'd have her car. But when it was me and Santiago, we would meet up at the Save-On on campus. And we had a bike that Bob gave us, and we duct taped a little baby stroller thing behind it. And that's how we got food from Save-On to camp. So that was fun. But in terms of non-tangible, again, like River said, it was your personal growth, because I knew as a mentor advisor I had the leadership abilities, but I felt like an imposter because I didn't know a lot of the ecological stuff. I wasn't working in nature camps, and that was a personal challenge for me to learn those things and kind of learn along the way, but also be able to share those with other people as I'm learning it. Was a very valuable skill.
Sorry, my cat decided to climb up at the same time. That's Sunny. Say hi to everyone, Sunny. Dishes. Oh, man, remember Burnaby Lake? It's taking like 2 hours to get the dishes done. And it's not just about dishes. It's like, how do you get people to do things they don't want to do? Yeah, it's a challenge. And so I think, yeah, we could have learned about, singing and making it more fun. Hopefully that would have worked. But yeah, I mean, I think it's still an ongoing challenge for me in my life, and for all of us as a facilitator to yeah, like think of parents getting their kids to do like chores and clean their room. Like it's the same. It's hard, and without using too much of like cake or candy to as motivation. But maybe we should have tried that. Yeah, that was tricky. And yeah, I don't remember what kind of strategies we used that worked. But well, one was we would just do it, but that's not very good. Don't do that. But yeah, or maybe that's why we didn't. Anyway, obviously you can tell it was just like almost an unsurmountable challenge. It still haunts me. I have trouble sleeping. Anyway, I don't think I can talk about it for much longer.
Appreciate that, Cycle. And yeah, sometimes it's always, those are the hardest challenges, where sometimes you kind of just got to work through them and you don't get a good answer at the end, which is unfortunate, but part of life's wonderful mysteries. We are running at the end of the night, and so I have one final question, which I did send you in advance, so you are prepared for. And this is a really quick one. If somebody asked you to describe CTS in 30 seconds, what would you say? What is your elevator pitch for CTS, whether it's for people, actually, let's make it in particular, for people who haven't been part of the program before and maybe are a little bit apprehensive and don't really know what they're doing, don't know whether they want to get involved. If somebody asks you to describe CTS in 30 seconds, what would you say? I'm going to start it off with River, and then we'll get going from there.
Geez, that was a lot of notice. Okay.
30 seconds, River.
I'm going to start with the words warmth, community, care, and I feel like a place of heart. So a place where you're going to be filled with this really intentional love by a community that cares about people, cares about land, and cares about relationships. And so I'm gonna do a pitch now. For anyone who is nervous or scared or is kind of like, I don't know why I'd want to hang out in the forest with a bunch of other kids, I would just go for it. I would just do a weekend and see how it is, and get your hands dirty and really just feel like a part of something for that moment.
Okay. Catching the Spirit is a youth-led stewardship program that focuses on stewardship and being outside and sustainability. And it's a place where you can be free from your screens. It's like a freedom from screen time. And yeah, there's lots of fun and games, and also getting your hands dirty and doing work. It's 3 days, Friday to Sunday, and in 4 parks around Metro Vancouver. They're all bus transit accessible, or at least mostly. And it's a free program.
All right. So you're a mid-level financial connoisseur. You have worked where you're up, and now you invest a lot in fossil fuels. So you need to get into some nature programs. You need to ease up your conscience. Let me tell you about Catching the Spirit. For youth, by youth. You got 4 teenagers. They're going to plan a weekend for 16 other teenagers, but there's also some supervisors there. Waste of money. They don't do anything. They don't plan the weekend. They don't take care of all they do is a little bit of first aid and some anaphylactic reactions. No big deal. But what you're paying for is to take down barriers. You're finding a way to get kids outside in local Metro Vancouver Regional Parks. They don't have to go to Squamish. They don't have to go to Lillooet, right here at Pacific Spirit or Tynehead. And you're also getting rid of the financial barrier. Kids, camping is very expensive, and we found a way to get them out there for free. So you want your carbon credits? We got them.
Brilliant. Does either Liz or Lisa want to follow up with that one?
I don't think I can follow that up. I just think Catching the Spirit has so many new marketing people now. Okay, so my pitch would be just a transformative leadership and outdoor recreation program available to anyone ages 12 to 18, I think, and an opportunity to really connect with the natural world and others in a way that is rare in our day-to-day lives. That's it. And I will pass it on to Liz.
Community and accessibility. And today the outdoors can be a really inaccessible and daunting place. The outdoor industry is predominantly white, affluent people who can afford to take time off work and get outside and have expensive gear. And you don't need any of that to be part of CTS. It's a free program. Gear is supplied, and the community that is made every single weekend is incredible. There's the broader CTS community, and then there's the community at each individual camp, each individual weekend, and among the different sites. I would highly encourage anyone interested in the program, or even if you've already become part of the program, to try out different parks, and also people who maybe outdoor adventure is really part of who they are. Going to CTS really helps us appreciate what's right in our backyard, and appreciate the land and the privilege we have to be there. And yeah, how cool it is to get outside with lots of friends every weekend.
Brilliant. Thank you all. And this kind of concludes the end of our night. So I'm just going to reiterate all the thanks. Thank you to our 5 panelists today for joining us and for really providing their insight into the program. It's been incredible hearing some of the stories and hearing some of your experiences. And the hope is that this is another starting point. A lot of the times right now CTS is in this phase of rebuilding, and this is the point where we can really look back at the program, look at the stuff that we've already done. And like Ed mentioned, and like many of you have mentioned, the program is very much the result of the people currently in it. It's going to change, it's going to shift, and hopefully we can look back, but for the most part, let's look forward and let's look at the next few years and see what brings us. But again, just thank you so much to our panelists for joining us, and really appreciate you taking the time out of your night and volunteering to be here and getting to see everyone again and getting to see some familiar faces. So yeah, if everybody wants to just unmute themselves or maybe use the reaction button, give themselves a round of applause. Really, I really appreciate all the time that you've given us, and yeah, thank you. Woo! Lots of love. Alrighty. It's getting on 6:30, so I'm going to make some final announcements, and then, like I mentioned, we're going to open up the time for some stories and for just staying online and seeing a chat. Like Travis said, this is kind of it's weird for CTS to be online and to actually be staring at a screen, so it's a little bit different for us. So if you need to go and if you need to get out of the screen time, feel free to. But we have some last minute upcoming events, and so one major announcement is for the next Spotlight series is going to be at the end of March, and we're going to be having Sonia Richmond join us, who is currently doing a 3-year journey walking across Canada, raising awareness for environmental programs across the nation and around the world, and the use of them and the necessity of them for programs like CTS. And so we're going to be able to have her join us at the end of March. The next major announcement is recruitment. A few of you are prospective peer leaders or prospective mentor advisors. If you're aged 15 to 18, you're more than welcome to apply right now to be a peer leader. The link is in our website. It's on our Instagram link. We'll send it out as well to all the participants so that you know where you're going. If you are aged 19 to 30, you are more than welcome to join us as mentor advisors, as supervisors, and join the wonderful, incredible team that's going to be running the program this summer with the peer leaders. And you might be able to get like Peter showing off a staff sweater. I got the fancy staff sweater as well, and join the incredible community that has been a part of CTS for the past 21 years. It's now our 21st year. If you do want to get involved outside of the summer, we're hoping to have some plans for March break. Finally get outside. We got some invasive species removals up at the Lower Seymour Conservation Reserve that we've just finally gotten approval for. We're getting back outside. I'm so stoked. And so if you're age 12 to 18 and you want to get volunteering, get back outside, get involved with your community, reach out, and we're going to have some March break plans. It's not just outside stuff. We also have some iNaturalist stuff and a couple other community garden things in the works. And so that's all of our announcements for the night, I believe. If anybody else, I don't believe there was any other announcements that people wanted to make, but I gave the space to presenters. 5, 4, okay, wonderful. And so yeah, that ends and concludes our formal part of the evening. It is now 6:30, and so if you want to get out of the way and leave, and that's it. That's all the plans that we have for the night. But I do want to open up this time just to open the floor for conversations and stories. And so similar to a weekend at CTS, at the end, we've got some, we got a campfire, we got some debriefs. And so we're gonna have a video of a campfire going.